Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. I'm so glad you joined us today. We have an exciting, wonderful service for you today. We're going to start with our opening song and get ready to sing this really good, feel-good song called Feelin' Groovy. Feelin' Groovy. One, two.
Good morning, everyone. Hello and happy Sunday morning to you. I'm so glad that you've joined us here at the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Rob Ekman. I am your host on this beautiful, crisp autumn morning. The Center for Spiritual Living is a spiritual community where all are welcome, and we thank you for joining us here in person or via our virtual online love stream. Our center is a spiritual community that teaches a philosophy for daily living based on spiritual principles and practices that are universal among all religions. We honor all pathways by which people seek to know and connect with the divine, and we work on our individual consciousness so that we can help make the world a better place. Our practitioner holding high watch today is Farrell Zeman. Throughout the service, Farrell will be in prayer with us and for us, knowing the best and highest good is unfolding as we share this sacred time together. Our prayer practitioner this morning is Teresa Martin. I'd like to take a moment and welcome anyone that's here for the very first time. If you're willing, do you mind raising your hand so that we can acknowledge you with a little round of applause? Yay. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And I speak for all of us when I say that we know that you'll find something here meaningful while you're visiting us today. Thanks for being here. And from wherever you are, I'd like to invite you to recommit yourself to our spiritual purpose by saying our purpose statement with me. We are a thriving community where individually and together we embody and express our spiritual magnificence for the highest good of all. Thank you. For all the latest and greatest info on what's happening here at the Center for Spiritual Living, you can visit our website at www.spirituallyfree.org. Thank you. Today, our guest speaker is our own Reverend Linda Brewer. She's going to speak to us on seeing beauty, feeling grace. And our guest musician is our dear friend, Mindy Dillard. Yes. Next week, our program will be offered by our own Center for Spiritual Living Band. So be sure to be here next Sunday. Next Sunday is a big day to begin with, and we're going to talk about that now. All right, so by way of announcements, the Labyrinth is complete. Yay! Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you to the volunteers who joined us yesterday for painting the Labyrinth, which is right out here behind the building and to the east. We'd like to thank the landlord for allowing us to paint the parking lot. I'd like to thank our friend Dominic Barcy for lending us the Labyrinth making equipment, without which a potentially long, complicated process was made a whole lot easier. I'd like to thank Jonathan King and the Art Factory for the parking lot striping paint. And I'd like to make a special thanks to my husband, Steve, because even though I was supposedly in charge, he was the one who could conceptualize and see the entire process from beginning to end and really made sure that it got done and that it was a labyrinth and not a maze. Yeah. So thank you to everyone that helped. My sore muscles, thank you. I haven't visited with all of you that were here yesterday, but I'm really sore today. All that labyrinth painting is exhausting. Very physically taxing work. All right, so the labyrinth, I'm going to talk a little bit about the labyrinth right now, and that is that it is intended for everyone, not just us, but for everyone. It is for the community. We can look forward to seeing some artwork out there, as well as some signage that will talk about what it is and how it's used and who we are. In terms of history, labyrinths go back more than 5,000 years. These are very ancient ideas of meditation and contemplation. A labyrinth is an ancient spiritual tool designed to foster contemplation and spiritual transformation. Labyrinths are different from mazes. A labyrinth is typically formed as a circle with a singular path leading to a center. A maze, on the other hand, has turnouts and dead ends, and we're not into those. A labyrinth is an ancient symbol of wholeness. The imagery of the circle and the spiral combine into a meaningful, purposeful journey that represents a journey or a path to our own center and then back into the world again. A church labyrinth, and I'm not going to go into the Christian stuff behind labyrinths because there's a lot, but a church labyrinth to that congregation can support and enhance the life of the congregation and its mission in many ways. Special events can support our spiritual healing, and they've been used effectively for generations during weddings, funerals, baptisms, and more. So the labyrinth is dry, and it is ready for your use. Next Sunday, we'll have a very short labyrinth dedication ceremony. Right after this service, we'll all walk out the door and across the parking lot and spend 5 minutes as a community blessing and dedicating and opening up our labyrinth to sharing with the community. Then later that day, next Sunday at 4 p.m., will be our annual Center Friendsgiving potluck meal. This is a great time for us to join together as friends and community to enjoy a meal together. We ask that everyone that attends wear a mask at all times except while eating. Volunteers are going to serve the main course foods, and side dishes will be served in separate small bowls or plates on tables, which you can pick up as desired. We still need you to sign up on the volunteer sheets out in the lobby, please. A variety of jobs from cleanup and setup and serving to preparing a side dish. Now that list is going pretty well. You guys, we're eaters, and that's coming along very well. But we still have a sign-up sheet out there for turkeys, and I don't... who's going to cook the turkeys and provide them, right? On the other hand, I'd be interested to see what turkeys here really sign up. But as always, if you buy the turkey and cook it, we will reimburse you for the turkeys. So please consider consider buying and cooking a turkey for our meal next week. Okay.
Robert, you wanted those that do turkeys to have them already cut up.
No, that's a great idea. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Will you please, those of you who are going to prepare a turkey, please bring it cooked and cut up, sliced, ready to serve. Thanks, Daryl. And if you have any more questions, just ask me. Thanks. Okay, we are a centered that is founded on and grounded in prayer. This helps us deal with whatever comes our way and creates a positive experience regardless of our situations. Our professional prayer practitioners are trained in the art and science of affirmative prayer and are ready to pray for you and with you. You can arrange a prayer with one of our practitioners online or via the prayer box in the lobby. And practitioners are here in the room with us today. So if you'd like to connect personally, let them know, and they can work with you. So finally, I invite you to all settle in, take a deep breath, relax, and gently close your eyes as Teresa guides us in prayer.
At the pace of creation, the first breath is always life-giving. Our Centers for Spiritual Living give us a theme every month. And this month, it's Breathe in the View. Slowing how we think and feel and take in the world is directly related to being centered. The wisdom traditions all have some form of meditation or prayer that is aimed at slowing us into this center, where the very pace of creation breathes. In their own way, all spiritual practices help us claim this centeredness, because being centered in this way plunges us again and again into that unseeable stream in which life is continually vital and refreshed. At the pace of creation, all things breathe. They breathe the same way. So when we slow and center ourselves, we breathe in unison with all of life. And breathing this way, we draw strength from all of life. When we slow down, the whole skies of cloud drift into unison with the dreams of the entire people. If we can slow the pace of creation, truth will sweep like a flock of birds from the mountains we climb. At the pace of creation, the beginning enters us and we are made new. When courageous enough to relax our souls open at the pace in which our mind thinks, and it slows to the pace at which our heart feels. And amazingly, together, they unfold the rhythm with which our eyes can see the miracle awaiting us in all that is ordinary. And this is taken from Book of Awakening by Mark Nebo. So while we are all here at this moment, let us close our eyes for a moment and breathe in the music as it prepares me for prayer. And prayer prepares us all to feel the words, feel the music. So close your eyes for a few moments.
was already here, closer than the sunlight, and nearer than the
So closer than the air, closer than the air we breathe. We are saturated in this oneness. It is everywhere present, surrounding us. There is nowhere that it is not. So in this moment of this beautiful Sunday morning, where a labyrinth awaits us, getting to our center, getting to the center of the self. And as we move through this day, we are aware, awake, and alive to who we really are, to that presence that lies within, that supports, loves, creates, assists in all of the things we do and say. It is the intuition that comes. It is the awakening, the realization. So as I come into that realization of who I really am, that I am loved and I am love, and all is love. Everything we see is love. So from that view, breathing into the view of love, I give thanks. I let it be. As together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Teresa. And thank you, Delanne. That was magnificent, beautiful.
Thank you.
I invite you to sing along this really fun song written by our own Leslie Monroe. It definitely is in line with the theme this month, breathing in the view. It's a song called I See. As a lot of our songs, especially our sing-along songs, they're a series of affirmations. So breathe them in. Sing along. One, two, oh, 1, 2, 3.
I
my pleasure to introduce our special music today. You know her and you love her dearly, and so do we. Just a magical presence and talent. So excited to hear what she has to share with us today. Let's welcome back Mindy Dillard.
Thanks, Rick. And thanks to everybody. I'm glad to be back again. So I was thinking about having grace for myself, for like the selves of long ago, right? Because like we change a lot as we grow, and that's what made me want to do this song, which is about mothers. It's called 10,000 Mothers, and it's actually written by Cozy Sheridan, who's a songwriter that I was really into her songs like a while ago, quite a few years ago now, and I kind of lost them for a while, and then I found them again recently and played some of them that I used to play, and just had like a look back on myself, the self that liked these songs before. Because I think it's really important to have grace for others, but also really important to have grace for ourselves. And so now that I'm a mother too, I'm trying to embody the mothers in this song. This is called 10,000 Mothers. In the land of 10,000 mothers, every song is a lullaby, and nobody marches to war. No one stands in the airport and cries, and nobody dies on the highway with too many words left unsaid. In the land of 10,000 mothers, we all sleep safe in our beds. In the land of 10,000 mothers, milk and honey flow without end, and nobody goes away wanting. You are welcome wherever you've been. You are welcome to lay your head down, get a kiss for every wound. In the land of 10,000 mothers, you will get better soon. You are welcome no matter what chases you, whatever road you chose through the wood. In the land of 10,000 mothers, somebody loves you and knows you are good. Somebody loves you and knows you are good. Thank you, and thank you, Cozy Sheridan.
Thank you, Mindy. It was just beautiful, wasn't that? And so full of grace. Oh my gosh, thank you. Well, it's my honor to introduce our friend, Reverend Linda Brewer. Reverend Linda was ordained for a counseling ministry in North Carolina in 1975, and then founded the Kindred Center there in 1980. She moved to Utah and joined our center and became a licensed practitioner in 2007. She served as a hospital and hospice chaplain until retiring in 2019. And she has been a regular speaker here at our center and also serves on the ministry council where she herds cats. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our very own Reverend Linda Brewer.
Truer words were never spoken. Oh, my goodness. I'm really glad you made that joke, Rob, because Mindy almost did me in with the mother song, so. Anyway, hi. Last week, Reverend Myrna encouraged us to not just keep pushing ourselves up the mountain of our endless to-do list, only to hurry to the bottom of the next goal's mountain and push ourselves upward yet again. Instead, she encouraged us to stop along the journey and take a look back to see how far we've come and what we've accomplished. While Sisyphus was condemned to spend all of eternity in that endless exercise of frustration and struggle, we each have a choice. Our theme this month is Breathe in the View, which we really cannot do when we just keep pushing ourselves toward our next goal or overwhelming ourselves with busyness of any kind that keeps us from stopping to reflect on the beauty that surrounds us each and every day, when we just allow ourselves to notice. The topic from home office for this week is Seeing Beauty, Feeling Grace. And since our amazing band is doing a very special Thanksgiving service next week, I decided to include elements of what was supposed to be next week's topic, which is celebrating the triumphant journey. Because I think both of those things, the seeing the beauty, feeling grace, and celebrating the journey, are essential elements of breathing in the view. For some reason, Myrna's encouragement to stop on the mountainside and look back over what we've done reminded me of Forrest Gump, sitting on that bus stop bench, telling anyone who would listen the story of his life and how it intersected with so many of the important historical events that some of us remember. I have, on more than one occasion, had the thought that I've led a kind of Forrest Gump life. So I went back and watched the movie this week. I highly recommend it. And while I didn't meet 3 presidents or win a Medal of Honor the way Forrest did, my nomadic life as an Army brat did indeed bring me into close contact with some very significant historical events. I've had a really delightful time this week sitting on the side of my own mountain and looking back over my life to see the beauty, feel its grace, and celebrate what's sort of been a triumphant journey thus far. So today, I've decided to share my life's journey with you. Not because my life is particularly important, except to me, but because I think that I am probably not that unique. I want to encourage everyone listening to take a similar journey, to see how the things that happened in your life have brought you to a place where you can recognize what a triumphant journey it has been, and allow yourself to see the beauty that your journey has brought to you and feel the grace of where you are right now. Each point along our journeys has been integral in shaping who we are now. Today, I'm asking you to allow yourself to see the exquisiteness and beauty in such divine order. Without each step we took, each choice we made, we would not be where we are today, able to see the beauty and feel the grace of the unique expression of the divine that we each are. So as I share the events of my life's journey, I invite you to reflect on the events of your own. Perhaps, like I did in preparing for today, you'll allow yourself to later take some of your personal memories and look up some of the news stories from the time to help cement for yourself your unique place in the world as an expression of the divine in relation to what was happening in the world around you. Now, since Forrest Gump's life often intersected with presidents, I found one of my earliest memories was my mom taking me to see Dwight Eisenhower. Yes, I'm old. When he was campaigning in Buffalo, New York, where we had gone to live with my grandmother when my father was sent to Korea. I can close my eyes and still see Ike, all bundled up against the cold as he rode around in the back of a convertible, waving to the crowds who had turned out to see the famous World War II general turned political candidate. I was 5 years old. And it's one of my earliest memories of something that wasn't just with my family. I was amazed as I went to look that up of all the photos I found of Ike riding around in a convertible, something that American presidents and candidates are no longer safe to do. When my father came back from Korea, he was assigned to the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and we moved to Fairfax, Virginia, where my brother and I participated in the trials for the Salk polio vaccine in 1954. When we were getting ready to leave Fairfax to move to Germany, I remember going to the Pentagon dispensary every week for quite a while and getting vaccinations. At times, 2 in each arm. We had to get so very many to go overseas. I guess that background is part of why I've had no resistance to getting the COVID vaccine, because my vaccine association is with really positive things, like the world being mostly rid of polio, and our move to Germany, where we lived in Füssen, the town that is home to the Neuschwanstein Castle. Do y'all know that? It's on all the travel posters of Germany, and it was the model for the Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland. We used to have birthday parties up there. While still in Fairfax, I also remember my babysitter watching TV, a program called Stage Show that I had to look up. And while she was watching, a young man named Elvis Presley performed songs called Blue Suede Shoes and Heartbreak Hotel. That was several months before his first appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I was really sad when we moved back to the States from Germany just a few months before Elvis was sent to Germany. I had hoped. When we left Germany, we moved to Huntsville, Alabama, where my father was stationed at Redstone Arsenal, home of the Marshall Space Flight Center. The Marshall Center was headed up by Wernher von Braun, who helped develop the Redstone rocket, the rocket that lifted the space capsule that took Alan Shepard, the first U.S. astronaut, into space on May 5th, 1961. I vividly remember our entire school listening over the school intercom to the radio broadcast of that big event, just down the road from the Space Center where the rocket was developed. Unfortunately, there were far darker events happening while we were in segregated Alabama. One of my earliest memories was going to a dime store. Remember those? And seeing the colored and white water fountains. I had never seen anything like that I remembered, because they're not like that in Germany, and I didn't understand what they meant. So I started to ask my mom about it, and she put her hand over my mouth, and she whispered, "We'll talk about it at home." I think that was the first time that I recognized that not everyone has the same privileges that I do as a white person. Also, while we were in Alabama, the Freedom Rides took place. Many of you aren't old enough, and those of you who are, I don't know if you remember them, but the Freedom Rides were white allies, mostly from the North, who came south to ride on buses with Southern blacks to protest the widespread legal discrimination against people of color. It was illegal at that time because buses were segregated, and there was a lot of violence and upheaval there in the South. The protests ultimately led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, long after I was out of there. In the summer of 1961, my family returned to Germany, where I would thankfully spend all 4 of my high school years. We lived in a town called Kaiserslautern, which we Americans, who that's way too much for us to say, called K-Town. And there were 60,000 Americans in K-Town. Our high school also served Ramstein Air Force Base, Simbach Air Force Base, and Wilson Barracks, home of the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, the largest American military hospital outside the continental U.S. If you pay attention to the news, both Ramstein and Landstuhl Hospital showed up for many years as our troops, who were severely injured in our many wars, were flown into Ramstein for treatment at nearby Landstuhl. I actually learned to drive on an abandoned airstrip at Ramstein Air Force Base. My very wise parents recognized that they would not do well as my driving instructors, so my dad let my boyfriend borrow his MG Midget to take me to learn to drive. It was summer, so we had the top down in the convertible, and after he showed me how to begin to move the car by easing off the clutch while gently pressing down on the gas, he let me get behind the wheel, while he sat up behind my seat so they could lean over and grab the wheel should it become necessary. Now, one of the things that you may not know about abandoned airstrips is that they are not maintained. So I began to release the clutch while pressing down all the way on the gas pedal and steering for the first time in my life. And up ahead, I see a huge hole. And my boyfriend yells, "Put on the brakes, put on the brakes." To which I responded, "You never showed me the brakes." But just about the time that I got to the edge of the crater, I figured out if that thing on the left was the clutch and the thing on the right was the gas pedal, that thing in the middle must be the brakes. So I slammed on the brakes, and he went sailing over and landed on the hood of the car. So while I'm figuring out how to turn off the car, I'm thinking to myself, great, I just killed my boyfriend. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know how to drive. Fortunately, he was just stunned and not really hurt. I'm really grateful that I learned how to drive on a stick shift. It served me well. What served me less well was learning to drive in a country in which the highways have no speed limits. Yes, the Autobahn. So just as I had lived in the segregated South, my high school years in Germany were during the time that that country, following World War II, had been split between the Eastern Bloc, which included the Soviets, and the Western Bloc, that was made up of the US, Britain, and France. The two parts of the prior country that had waged the war became what we knew as East Germany and West Germany. After the war, the governing body of Germany was called the Allied Control Council. It consisted of the commanders-in-chief of the US, the UK, France, and the Soviet Union. They were all headquartered in Berlin, and Berlin was divided up into 4 sections. Because West Germany and West Berlin grew much quicker, more quickly, my father just said in my head, people from East Germany were coming through Berlin to escape the country because it was very oppressive living there and there was not much opportunity. So the Soviets decided to build a wall between the two cities in 1961, and it stayed there until it was finally removed in 1989. When they did that, West Berlin was totally cut off from the rest of West Germany that whole time. The World War II allies became adversaries in what we all knew as the Cold War. In June of 1963, President John Kennedy visited with the mayor of Berlin, Willy Brandt, who in 1969 went on to become the Chancellor of West Germany. Kennedy visited Checkpoint Charlie, which was the American one of those checkpoints where people with appropriate credentials could go from East Berlin to West Berlin and vice versa. They were all surrounded by armed military when they did that. While he was in Berlin, our president was greeted with ecstatic crowds, and they showered his entourage with flowers. In the Rudolf Wilde Platz, Kennedy gave one of his most memorable speeches in which he declared, "Ich bin ein Berliner," except he didn't say it quite as well, which means, I am a Berliner. And he did that to support the continued freedom of those in West Berlin who felt their freedom was threatened because they were surrounded by East Germany. 5 months after that visit to Berlin, Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, riding in a convertible, as I had seen Eisenhower do. While in high school, I belonged to an outreach ministry to high school kids called Young Life. My junior year, our group had scheduled a trip to Berlin for our Thanksgiving school break. That trip was another one of my really significant intersections with history. As I mentioned, Berlin was cut off from the rest of West Germany, so our train had to travel through East Germany. As we neared Berlin, the train stopped, and armed soldiers boarded the train, asking for our identification and searching any place where someone might hide. Outside, other soldiers had devices on long handles that they used to search under the train, since people trying to escape the oppression of that place often risk their lives to do so, just as many in the world today risk their lives to escape unbearable oppressors. As a 16-year-old, it was very frightening being under the scrutiny of those armed men. But once we reached West Berlin, many extraordinary things happened for us. We arrived there just 5 days after Kennedy's assassination. And everywhere we went, people would hear us speaking English, and they would come up to us crying to express their sympathy and tell us how much they loved President Kennedy. We visited the plaza where he had given his famous speech, and the name of it had already been changed to John F. Kennedy Platz, and the street signs were draped in black. Somehow, and I still wonder about this, it had been arranged for us to have afternoon tea with Willy Brandt. And the mayor, who spoke excellent English, shared with us his personal grief about the loss of Kennedy and how much his visit had meant to the people of West Berlin. We also got to spend an evening at a refugee camp and hear the stories of the oppression they had faced in East Germany and how they risked their lives to be free. One afternoon, we went through Checkpoint Charlie, again with soldiers boarding and searching our bus before we were allowed to proceed. Crossing into East Berlin reminded me of a scene in The Wizard of Oz, but in reverse. If you remember, that movie begins in black and white, but when the tornado deposits Dorothy in Oz, she walks out the door into a vibrant Technicolor world. It was the exact opposite as we crossed the wall. West Berlin was an energetic and vital city filled with vivid colors and animated life. There was stuff to do everywhere, huge department stores and restaurants. East Berlin was monochromatic. Everything was beige or gray and drab, including the wardrobes of the people walking. All the windows of the buildings that faced East Berlin had been boarded up to prevent people trying to escape through them when the building of the wall began. We were all silent for a very long time after we crossed back into West Berlin, trying to absorb what we had seen. And once again, I recognized the privilege of the life I had been blessed to have. In July of 1964, my young life leaders took me and another student with them on a camping trip to England. We visited Stratford-upon-Avon, birthplace of William Shakespeare, and saw one of his many plays showing there. But most of the time we spent in London visiting all the famous places like Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, the Tower of London, and Big Ben, while riding around in the famous red double-decker buses. One night we were looking for a place to eat, and we ran into a huge crowd of people that were blocking the way we were heading. So we circled back and we went around the block, and we found a small restaurant on the second floor. We were surprised that the place was almost empty, so we got a seat by the window and we were enjoying our meal when suddenly the crowd began to move in our direction. Suddenly, a limousine pulls up at the back door of the big building that was across the way, and 4 young, long-haired young men, surrounded by security people, jumped out of the limo and were whisked into the building. Unbeknown to us, we had chosen a place across the street from the London Pavilion, where the Beatles were arriving for the premiere of their first feature film, Hard Day's Night. These are all true stories. I started college in the fall of 1965, like now, a turbulent time in American history. During the 4 years I was in school, the Vietnam War was in full swing, while the civil rights movement was happening across the country. Protests were everywhere, even in my tiny little Presbyterian college in Indiana. On April 5th, 1968, during my junior year, my theology professor walked into class and said, "Good Friday came a week early this year." Martin Luther King had just been assassinated the day before. 2 months later, I was up late watching the returns of the California primary because I was working as a volunteer for Eugene McCarthy's presidential campaign, and I was anxious to see the results. I had gotten to shake hands with Bobby Kennedy when he campaigned in our college town, because our volunteers all lined the sidewalk to say, "Missed you in New Hampshire, Bobby," because Kennedy didn't enter the race until McCarthy did so well in New Hampshire, and then Johnson dropped out of the race. So now, as I'm up late watching the primary returns, Kennedy gave his victory speech, left the stage, and then, right before my eyes, was gunned down and killed. I'm sure you'll be thrilled to hear that we don't have time to cover the rest of my life. That's only the first 22 years, and there's another 50 to go, but really, there is a reason that I share all this with you. I feel like we're at another tumultuous time in our country, and I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard for me to see the beauty or feel the grace when people are so divided and angry with each other. Looking back on my life has helped me to remember that we've kind of been here before, and that I get to choose where I focus my attention and how I show up. If you recall, the theme for this year is Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. That vision says that we envision a world in which each and every person discovers their own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, "Let us so live and think that we may retire at night in peace, knowing that no harm can come to the soul, that we may rise in the morning renewed in body and in mind, with a brighter outlook, a happier expectation, and a clearer joy." So what steps can we take to get to that place where in our chaotic world we so live and think that we can retire at night seeing the beauty, feeling the grace, and celebrating our journey? First, we have to appreciate what is. Myrna talked last week about using a gratitude journal, and I'm here to tell you it is a powerful tool. And it has been the most consistent spiritual practice in my life for over 30 years. The worst day of my life happened on Thanksgiving in 1996, when my mother sat down after the Thanksgiving dinner that she had cooked for the rest of my family, had a heart attack, and died. When you grow up moving from place to place, if you're blessed as I was, your family is your saving grace as you're thrown into all those new situations where you know no one. My mother was also my best friend, and I sobbed every day for a year after she died. But the night of her death, because of my ingrained habit of keeping a gratitude journal, I was able to sit down and write pages and pages of gratitudes. Gratitude cultivates faith, and faith aligns us in knowing that this too is God. This too is good. I probably would have continued to resist my calling to chaplaincy if my mother had not died. Second, after appreciation, we're called to celebrate. And I know that a lot of you who are here are really good at that part of the process. If there's one thing this group does, it's party. I can't adequately express the joy that I felt as I did my Forrest Gump journey through my life this week. With the perspective of time, I was able to see how each of those events shaped me, moved me to a life of service and the fulfillment of following my calling. It really filled my heart, and had I been physically still able, I would have turned a cartwheel to celebrate. But we each have our own way of celebrating that brings us joy, and I encourage all of you to review your life and celebrate the magnificent way that you have expressed the divine that took form as you to bring your gifts to the world. And the last step that leads us to seeing the beauty and feeling the grace is to demonstrate the growth that our journey has brought us. Using gratitude and joy as our compass, we now choose to gracefully navigate the flow of life, holding a vision of what is possible as we choose to use the tools of our science of mind philosophy for our ongoing transformation. As we continue to nurture our divine consciousness, we will experience more of our own magnificence, which will enable us, if we choose, to live our values and beliefs out loud so that we actually do create a world that works for everyone. So today, as we prepare to be in prayer together, I invite you to commit to sitting down on the side of your own mountain and looking back, to appreciate and celebrate where you have been, recognizing the growth that has been part of the entire journey, and opening your heart to that which is yet to be. As the book Embodied Enlightenment reminds us, awakening is no longer about abandoning or transcending physical reality to live a spiritual life. It is the fulfillment of our divine destiny by living the truth of our inner radiance while in earthly bodies. Despite the brightness of these lights here in my eyes, I can see the inner radiance of each one of you. I'm so very grateful that my earthly journey brought me here so that we might share this part of our journeys together. So I invite you as you go through this week and the coming months, may you see the beauty that is reflected in each mirror that you pass, and feel the grace of being such a special expression of the one that brought us all into being. Let's be in prayer together. On this sacred, holy day, we allow ourselves to see the beauty of that which the One created all around us. Our glorious mountains, the colors of fall, the blue sky and the clouds. Everything that we see and encounter in this entire world is an expression of the divine taking form in this world. And as we recognize this about everything that is, we also acknowledge that it is true for us. That each one of us exists because the divine wanted to express a special, special part of itself. And so it took form as us. And today I'm knowing for each one of us here that we allow ourselves time to stop, to see the beauty within us and around us, to feel the grace that our journey has brought to us, and to recognize how perfect each step of that journey has been. This world would not be what it is supposed to be without you, without each one of us. And so today we allow ourselves to fully express the magnificence that we each are. We give thanks for this spiritual community that surrounds us with love and friends and a place where we can be reminded of the truth of who we are. And in gratitude for all of this, I just let these words be, releasing them into the law that does the work and knowing that it is already done. As together we say, and so it is.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I give. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
We are so very blessed to be part of this wonderful community, to have this amazing band. Whoa! So be sure you're here next week because it's all band all the time. Oh, well, we may have some announcements and a prayer at the beginning, but after that, it's all band all the time. All right, this is our time where we recognize how blessed we are to participate in the divine flow in which the gifts of God come to us, and we keep that flow going by sharing them with others, particularly here, our spiritual community, where we get to be reminded of that truth about who we are. So as our ushers are coming forward, the text to give stuff will be up on the screen. We just invite you to join us in saying together our giving affirmation. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Filled with gratitude, I let this be, and so it is.
All that I need comes to me. All that I need
Let's hear some more from Mindy Dillard.
Will you just introduce me like that, like every day? Like you could just come around with me. Here's Mindy Dillard. Here she is. All right. This is a song I wrote about welcome. Being welcome at the table. You are welcome at my table. You are welcome in my home. You are free to share your story. You are not alone. Yeah, I like the clapping. I'm gonna sing that again. If you wanna hum along or join in, I'd love that. You are welcome at my table. You are welcome in my home. You are free to share your story. You are not alone. Rest your body on my pillow. You can stay here as long as you need. Come on and walk me through your garden. Show me your flowers and your weeds. You are welcome at my table. You are welcome in my home. You are free to share your story. You are not alone. And it's okay if you break some china or spill red wine on the white rug. I really did that one time. If you cry, it doesn't mean you're weak. We all are seeking love. Come to the banquet. Come to the banquet. Come to the banquet now. You are welcome at my table. You are welcome in my home. You are free to share your story. You are not alone. You are welcome at my table. You are welcome in my home. You are free to share your story. You are not alone. You are not alone. Thank you. All the singing and clapping, that was great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Mindy Dillard, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Linda, Reverend Linda Brewer, wonderful message. Thank you for sharing a piece of your life. It's exhilarating to hear somebody else's story when you can connect to pieces of it, or when you are curious about something or surprised by something that's said. It just keeps you engaged. And it actually did that for me, Linda. I felt myself standing on the side of my mountain and looking back. And boy, so much to be grateful for, huh? I hope you do that this week. Take a look back at your life and build yourself up. It's thrilling to live your life, the rest of your life, from that point of gratitude. I want to give a special thanks to all our veterans. We celebrated Veterans Day this past week. Thank you for your service on behalf of the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. Now, if you please stand, let's sing our closing song. I want to hear you guys are warming up for next week because we're going to do a lot of singing next week. So I want to hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Here we go.